What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Scouting Combine here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm joined by my co-host Eric. How we doing today, my guy?
Hey, I'm awesome, man. Excited about this show.
Yeah, of course. We're moving away more so from draft talks. We talked about the rookies as well. We haven't really talked about some of the free agents that the Dolphins added on the offensive side of the ball, specifically with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jonnu Smith, along with Aaron Brewer. We spoke about Aaron Brewer very briefly in our previous shows, but we'll get into more of the concepts today as well. But Eric, today we have somebody special coming in. Who is that special person?
Yeah, so every show we've had over my left shoulder here got a couple of books, and the author of those books is Bobby Peters. That's the 2022 complete Dolphins, playbook, and also the 23. Bobby goes back and he goes through each game and calls out some different concepts. It's an awesome book. A lot of guys that I know that do stuff with the Dolphins have these books. When me and you first started talking, this was one of the first guys that I had mentioned in terms of wanting to get on here, to share the show with, and I'm excited to have him here today.
Of course. And today we have Bobby Peters joining the show, who wrote the books of the 2022 and 2023 game planning with the Miami Dolphins, along with the host of other teams. Bobby, how you doing today, my guy?
Good. Thank you for the kind words. Obviously, a lot of hard work goes into those books. So I'm glad you guys enjoy them. But like I was telling you guys earlier today, I think the Miami Dolphins have to be one of my favorite teams that I've studied. They're a lot of fun in a lot of different ways, and I know we're going to touch on some of that today. So I'm excited to chat about it.
Of course we will. And, you really deep dove into the games in 2022, 2023. We saw a pretty big shift in 2022 to 2023, especially with the Dolphins using their what we now is called the SHART motion as well. Like, when we're talking about that motion specifically evolving from 2022 to 2023, what did it open up schematically for this team, and how did it impact how opposing defenses played?
So the motion itself, it gives defenses a lot of different problems. So usually when a receiver goes in motion, he'll kind of go, across, he'll kind of go in, a short motion into a bunch, or he'll go across the field to kind of change a formation strength or something like that to mess with the defense. But then in 2022, the Dolphins started using like Tyreek Hill on fast motion across the formation, and that presented some problems for defenses in ways that they really hadn't experienced before. So in 2023, when they started using the sharp motion and going away, that really messed with coverage checks on that side of the field. And they were, especially early in the season, they were able to get some incredibly wide open receivers just using that motion. But the neat thing about the motion too is they got to a lot of their base concepts. They weren't like drawing up new plays. They were just getting to their base stuff that Tua excels at, but just dressing it up with that motion to give their receivers leverage advantages.
Right. We're going to talk about the first play right here, Eric and Bobby. This is called the bang pivot. You basically have a bang 8 route at the top of the seam right there, and you're going to have the sharp motion, which usually Tyreek Hill is running, or in 21 personnel, Alec Ingold is doing, and he's, mainly a blocker. So this personnel right here is 21 personnel. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby and Eric. Now, Eric, as an offensive line coach, when we're talking about a motion, a fast motion, or a sharp motion, and it's pretty much timed up with the snap. As an offensive lineman, what are some things you're looking for pre-snap, before the ball is snapped, and what the defensive linemen and linebackers are calling out on the field?
So the first thing with that is, with the motion, the offensive line has to kind of have a general understanding of that, because it's going to change the timing of the snap. The offensive line has to be able to anticipate that. In order to do that, you've got to understand the motions to an extent, but then also visually, you've got to be able to see how they're shifting. Like, are the linebackers, are they shifting with the motion, or are they staying where they are? Does it change? Maybe somebody that was walked up on the edge is now backing off or away from the motion. Does that bring an extra defender up there who's looking to blitz that may not have been looking to go before that motion?
Right. So, Bobby, walk us through the schematics of the bang pivot. What is it primarily use against? Which coverages does it bust? And, what kind of concept does this originate from?
So bank pivot is the general term that I use. So when I write, I try to keep things as general as I can. So like you said, the primary receiver on this play is the X receiver. So that's the first receiver that you see on the left of the diagram. They're running, like a, some coaches call it like a drift or a strike route. I've called it a bang route for a while. So that's kind of just what I use in the books to describe it. So it's basically, like you said, it's like a 7-step post / dig. They try to find the space behind the second level of defense in front of the third level of the defense. Now, the pivot element is that underneath route. It could be a running back, a slot receiver, or a tight end. So he's going to release and he's going to try to stay like in the jet stream or just inside of the bang route. And he is going to sit down against a soft spot in a zone, or if there's a flat defender outside of him, or if he's matched, man to man, or if he's matched from the inside, he's going to break away to try to create some extra separation there. So at its core, the concept is trying to create a high-low against zone coverage. Now, it's not terrible against man coverage either. You can still probably try to get that bang route, but sometimes cover one coverages present problems because you've got an extra hole defender in the middle of the field that can bracket that route. So this version I wanted to talk about, especially because this is one of my favorite versions they ran in 2022, and then obviously more in 2023. Using that fast motion is a way to kind of enhance the play against man coverage, which is a trouble coverage for the concept. So when they use that fast motion, if the defense plays pure man coverage, now a defender has to chase that motion and that rail route up the sideline. And that could be a nice pre-snap read for Tua if he sees that, hey, this rail route's live, I can throw this. Otherwise, the defense wants to play zone or pass off the motion to the field now, to the boundary. Now you're going to get a free release for the bang route, and you're also going to bang pivot's a good concept against most zone coverages. So you're in good shape there. So it's a nice all-purpose concept in Miami's offense. And it was, in McDaniel's first season in 2022, it was really their bread and butter. And it was the action that a lot of concepts in the offense were built around.
All right, here we have the bang pivot route here in 2022, the Dolphins versus the Bengals playing on Thursday night back in 2022. You have 11 personnel on the offense, and from what it looks like on the defense, they're playing single high. Now, I can't tell whether it's zone or man, but there will be some indicators once we get to that sharp motion. Eric, what are you seeing on the defensive line primarily pre-snap?
Yeah, so you got 4 down linemen, and then you got 2 defenders that are kind of lurking around the line of scrimmage there. They're going to have to call the protection either to the left or to the right. You got 6 total defenders there, so you're going to have 3 linemen going one way and 3 linemen going the other, meaning that you're either going to have, on the right side, you're going to have 1 unblocked defender or picked up by the running back, or on the left side. So it's just going to depend on which way either Tua or, I don't know whether Connor Williams may be calling that protection, but you're going to see Connor Williams going either left or right, and that's the way the protection is going to be called.
All right, we'll get to the motion right here by Alec Ingold. Makes it 2 receivers equal on each side. We'll go ahead and run it again through the motion, and snap is the ball. Boom. Okay, Bobby, defensive coverage-wise, what are we seeing first?
It looks like a version of spot drop zone, a version of looks like a fire zone. I think they're bringing 5 there. So fire zone basically means 3 under and 3 deep.
Right.
So that's a very advantageous.
You got 5 defenders rushing in. So Eric, you called it out. You had 6 down defenders. You had 1 drop back.
Yeah, there's actually a full slide protection. All 5 linemen slid to the right to pick up those 5, and that defender on the left that's kind of dropping with Mostert there was the free defender.
Perfect. So we got the pre-snap read. Now post-snap, we know what the coverage is, Bobby. So now explain the bang pivot concept in full detail right here. I have the video stopped. What is going on the left side of the field and the right side of the field, and what is Tua seeing?
So the left side of the field is the front side of the concept. So what that means is that's where Tua is going to look first. So that's the side with the bang pivot in the rail action. So the rail can be eliminated because we know it's zone coverage, so that's not great against zone. So Tua's immediately going for that bang route. Now, like we talked about, the bang pivot creates a high-low. It creates a high-low on the hook defender. In this case, the hook defender is that defender that's between the hash and the numbers. And talking about front side of the play, so this is kind of how like the routes need to tie into the protection as well. So, with the 6-up defenders that we saw at the line of scrimmage, like Eric was saying, the offensive line has to declare, okay, which way are we going to slide? So typically, as a former quarterback myself and an offensive coordinator, I want that slide to go to where my quarterback's not looking, right? Because we want to protect his blind side. So slide that thing to the right. If somebody comes free off the left, Tua can see it. It's in his vision. So that's exactly what's happening here. So you have your protection tied up with the route concepts here. And this is a great clip. And I wanted to talk about this one because this is one where the primary route is thrown. Tua throws that bang route right on time as that hook defender kind of eyes that pivot route coming out the backfield. Tua with a great anticipation throw right into that window. And that's when I think of Tua, I think of these types of throws right here, throwing these bang routes right on time.
Perfect. Absolutely love and adore the analysis of this. Now, there were a lot of clips from this in 21 Personnel in 2023. With the addition of, Taz Washington and Malik Washington as well. We know from last season that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were not on the field together much. It was around less than 40% of snaps. With both Washingtons that could be on the field with either Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill, how does this factor into who will, who's going to be running this bang route? Is it going to be Tyreek Hill 100% of the time? Is it going to be one of the rookies? Is it going to be Jalen Waddle? Like, who is the primary guy that is the best at running this bang route?
So both Hill and Waddle are very good at running the route. And the Dolphins have targeted both of them over the last 2 years with it. I think, the Dolphins, both Hill and Waddle, when it comes to like target share for top 2 receivers, the Dolphins are towards the top of the NFL, if not at the top of the NFL, at force feeding, their top receivers the football. So I think, as long as those two are healthy and they're able to play, I think Miami's going to continue to feed them the football. And, they'll use the young guys, in other concepts or as secondary parts of the progression. But, hey, if I would had Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on my team, I would try to make them number 1 in my progression as many times as possible as well.
All right. The next concept we have is the crack seal. Let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit from it. Here we go.
So that's the outside zone one I sent you.
Ah, okay. This should be. No, I'm not seeing it. But we can talk about the full flow outside zone right here in the meantime.
There you go.
All right. So basically, a full flow outside zone is obviously an outside zone concept. You're flowing from one side of the line, whether it be the left, whether it be the right. Eric, as an offensive line coach and an offensive lineman, you are basically not backpedaling. You are moving the line of scrimmage upwards. You are pulling in the defenders as well. Before we get to the main concept, we have to talk about the offensive line and the flow right here. So, Eric, tell us exactly what needs to happen for all 5 guys for this play to work successfully.
Yeah, so I did a video last week on my YouTube channel covering some of the zone stuff. The ones I did there were more of an inside zone, but the rules are still basically the same. And I think that based on what I've seen, Miami kind of uses a covered versus uncovered philosophy in terms of their blocking. So you see how the lineman here, you have a shade is the direction that they're going with. Everybody's going to be stepping play side on this. So everybody's going to step left, but then what happens after that will depend on whether or not they are covered or uncovered. So like here, you can see the left tackle, he's got an end in his gap, so he would be considered covered, and he's going to continue outside, shooting for that outside shoulder, whereas the left guard does not have anybody in his gap, does not have anybody over him. So he's going to take that left step first, but then he's going to help with that nose before he climbs to the next level on his combo block.
All right, Bobby, as the conceptualizer of this play, what does the running back need to do? What is Tua seeing pre-snap and post-snap? And how does this work against basically eight-man boxes and cover one as well?
So, taking a step back, I think the biggest thing is the blocking. So, when it comes to like the running back, the running back needs to do what he needs to do. What is Tua seeing pre-snap and post-snap? And how does this work against basically eight-man boxes and cover one as well? So, back with this. So full flow outside zone is basically running outside zone to the tight end to like with the fullback leading. So that's kind of how that's categorized. And the Miami Dolphins, Mike McDaniel coming from Kyle Shanahan, who runs it a lot. They're one of my favorite teams to study with this as well, because they run every single variation you can think of, and they get to it in so many different ways as well. So with these versions, they're with all the different ways they can run it. The most important thing that they have to determine is, how are we going to block the second level defenders? Are we going to ask the fullback to take the first, second level defender, the play side receiver? Are we going to ask the tight ends combination, whether that be with the fullback or with, in this case, the play side tackle? How do they want to do that? And it depends on the front, depends on the defense. So every week you get to see different versions of it. You get to kind of go behind their thought process on why they want to do that. And I love your point about talking about running this against an 8-man box, which is what we get here, right? With the strong safety rotated down. This particular, any outside zone's a great call against a loaded box, because you don't have to block the backside defensive end. So you can get the numbers back for the offense with that being the case. Now, this fast motion by the tight end here to come across to enter his combination with the play side tackle really forces these second level defenders to move and cover a ton of ground horizontally, as we'll see in the film clip. So that allows the offensive line some more leverage to get up to the second level. So, there's a lot of thought, intentionality put into the design of this play. And that's one of the reasons that I gave it a page in that book there.
All right, we have the film up right here. Eric, what are you seeing on the defensive side of the ball, specifically of about the front?
Again, you have a 4-man front here. You can see that defensive end to the left has a really wide 9 type split. So that's going to be, quite the reach for the tackle to try to get out there. You got more of a 2 or almost a 1 technique by the, the nose there. Our centers are very athletic, and most of the time are able to get around and seal that off. So, looking at this, I would expect this play to be able to hit front side and not necessarily have to look to bend it backwards. So this would be an opportunity pre-snap where I would think the running back is either looking to, get through the B gap if the tackle kicks out that end, or if that end comes inside, or we're able to seal him with the tight end, then bouncing it and using that speed outside.
Yeah, when you're talking about the seal right here, this tight end is going to come across the motion and deal with the primary blocker as well. Let me go ahead and put it into a slower playback speed right here. All right, it's 21 personnel here up against the New York Jets. You have Chase Claypool and Robbie Chosen, who are no longer part of the Miami Dolphins. You have Alec Ingold, and I believe that could be I think that could be Devon Achane. It's a little bit blurry, but I can't really tell. And right here, Bobby, it looks like it's not so much of a front-loaded 8-man box. It looks like a light box. If this were an 8-man box, how would the front look differently?
So for intents and purposes, like from the run game standpoint, I personally would call this an 8-man box with that safety kind of getting close to that there. Okay. As you can see, the strong safety to the field. He's the guy kind of standing just inside the hash there.
Okay, I see it now.
Yeah, but like I was saying, the design of the play wouldn't. And the Dolphins have a few different ways they could tag this. So this play is differentiated by the way that the tag that they use with it is the tag that represents the play side tackle and tight end working in combination. So there's a few different ways they can do it. They can, without getting, too nitty gritty, it could be, a will declared run, or where they're pushing the scheme further out. So if the defense is in a 2 high shell or 1 high shell, the way the play side receiver accounts for the safety, or if the combination block of the tackle and the tight end, or the fullback accounts for the safety, just depends on how it's tagged there. So without unless we know the exact tag they use, it's hard to pinpoint it, because it could be blocked a couple of different ways based on how the defense lines up.
All right, there we go. We have the motion happening. Bam. Eric, what are you seeing first and foremost?
So not a great block by the left tackle here. Typically when we're, running an outside zone, either want to get all the way outside of him and be able to seal him inside and give a clear read to that back, or be able to just kick him out, keep your butt in the hole, and again, give a clear read to the back. Not really getting a great read as to whether he should be going inside or outside of the tackle here. We can see that the guard looks like he's actually taking the nose, possibly a, situational thing where Connor Williams is just much more athletic than Lester Cotton there, and their combo block between the two of them was, to let Williams try to chase down that linebacker versus Lester Cotton.
That's a great point, Eric. It's almost like, and I talk about it a little bit too in the book. It's like a man call was made, and they started doing this a little bit in 2023. And I'd be real curious, like if I could talk to McDaniel or a coach on their staff, that'd be one of my questions was, why'd you guys make more man calls? But I think your point there, your point makes a ton of sense. If you've got a center who's a lot better at getting up to the second level, which we see here, he does a pretty solid job. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, that pretty much accounts for why the Dolphins also signed Aaron Brewer in free agency. He's a bit more athletic in terms of getting up to the second level of the field, and he really uses his speed and power and combines them to absolutely obliterate defenders on the second level of the field. Here we have a better look of it. We have the end zone view of it. Right here, we take a look at the left tackle, Terron Armstead. Doesn't really flex out too wide. We have the man call here by Lester Cotton, and this actually isn't Connor Williams.
It is. Yep, it's Eichenberg.
That's Liam Eichenberg.
Still the same concept. I mean, Eichenberg and Williams are both, two of the more athletic linemen on the team, and Lester Cotton is literally the least athletic. So still the same, idea there. But I agree that, adding somebody like Aaron Brewer, when you look at concepts like this, we're not going to ask him to block that nose tackle, and he's going to excel in stuff like this.
Perfect. All right. Then we will pivot over to the crack seal.
There you go. Yep.
Do I have it right?
Yep.
All right. There we go. So this crack seal, obviously the tight end is going to be sealing the backside as well. The fullback will go ahead and be the primary blocker, and the running back will just basically follow his blockers. Now, I think we understand why this is called a seal and a crack, but on a more advanced note, Bobby, why is this play ran, basically?
Yeah, so this is kind of a combination. I first saw this with the Niners a few years back. Obviously, McDaniel was on the staff at that time too. It's basically a combination of outside zone and crack toss. Now, crack toss has been around forever. I remember, the John Gruden Bucks and Raiders, 20, 25 years ago, bunch crunch. You always heard Gruden talking about bunch crunch. It's, that's the crack toss is kind of like the general name for it. And crack seal is a term, honestly, I just made up. I have no idea who else calls it this. It's just what I call it. So basically what you're doing is you're getting the crack block from the receiver on the end man of the line of scrimmage. So in this clip, I believe it's Tyreek Hill who does a fantastic job in this play of crack blocking the end man of the line of scrimmage. Now, usually on crack toss, we're pulling a play side tackle to take either the force defender or the corner. Now, on crack seal, usually with it, I think this play was born out of, play side three techniques, giving play side guards problems on this play. So they wanted to get a double team on it to kind of secure that anchor point a little bit better and then get up to the second level. So I think that's kind of where it came from. So on crack seal, nobody's pulling unless you got the fullback leading, but you don't really have an offensive lineman pulling. They're blocking outside zone. So that's kind of where, the combination of it comes in. And there's a lot of, like I was talking about there with you're getting an extra body on a three technique, or in this case, you've got a four, a head up on the play side tackle. You can get a true zone double team here. And there's benefit to that against certain fronts like this.
Eric, on the offensive line front of things, as Bobby said, it's basically true outside zone blocking as well. This is looking like a five-man front. Basically starting from the play side of the formation to the back side of the formation. What are you coaching your offensive linemen to do on a play like this?
Yeah, so like Bobby said, this is very similar to outside zone, where the variation is here. Kind of matches up well with the play we just did because that the safety or the strong side linebacker, as he's labeled here, was the guy that Armstead was trying to get before and wasn't able to get a good block here. This is a great counter to that because now instead of asking Teron Armstead to get out there and try to seal that, now we're going to have a receiver who's stepping in. And because it does look so much like outside zone, that strong side linebacker has to respect that. And he's got to almost squeeze that some, which is just going to make that block easier. And that's how, a player like Tyreek Hill can make a block on a linebacker because that linebacker has to respect the idea that Armstead may be trying to get out on him on outside zone. And as we can see, with the way the defense looks here, if we were to pull the tackle, it's really not giving him much more of an advantage here. If we were to run a crack toss versus the crack seal here, there's not an extra defender out there for him to get. So this just gives him more of a vertical release and still able to do the same job.
We'll go over here and run the play. You have Durham Smythe in the motion right here. And here we go. Boom. Okay. I wish we had the end zone view of this, but it's okay. We see Tyreek Hill making this crackback block right here. We are going to see Armstead pull out, and he's going to take the defensive tackle while Tyreek Hill blocks the edge defender up here. Center-wise, I believe that could still be Connor Williams. It's just man right there. They're going at it 1-on-1. And then you go ahead and see Robert Hunt move up all the way to the second level to take on this middle linebacker who is going to be keying and zoning in on this hole, which also fullback Alec Ingold is going to be plugging up so that way Mostert has a clear line to get a couple more yards. All right, Bobby, run us through this play one more time.
So this is something I want to touch on too. So generally speaking, right? I mean, I know this was early in the season. I think this was week 2, but the point still stands. So by early on in the season, teams started to figure out, okay, Miami really wants to get the ball on the edge with their run game, whether it be crack toss, crack seal, the outside zone variations. That was their bread and butter. So like defenses make a conscious effort to try to stop it. And the fact that Miami still continued to do that throughout the season, even as they started to struggle down the stretch, they were still able to do it. To me, was one of my favorite parts about studying the 23 version of the Dolphins is they really doubled down on their strength, and the scheme ways they got to it were a ton of fun to study. And it was just an impressive coaching job from that standpoint, how they continued to get the ball on the perimeter of the defense. And specific to this play, so I love this example because, you've got your best receiver doing a great job blocking a Sam linebacker on the ball. You've got that fast motion going away, with a little bit of misdirection element, right? So like the play before when the tight end went in fast motion, we ran it to that side. Here, now we're going the opposite direction. So it kind of gives you that full, that full gamut of what they can do from a scheme standpoint. And obviously it's blocked up pretty
right.
Well,
And with the motion right there, with that motion right there, he's basically pulling that defender with him, which gives a little bit more time for the blockers to get to their hash marks or their points to block them. And the defenders are a little bit delayed in basically trying to make a tackle right there.
Correct.
That's what the motion does.
Correct. Yep. And the play side tackle doing play side tackle and play side guard doing a solid job on the 4 tech there. And then, the play side tackle getting up to the mic was pretty critical.
All right, we have a comment here from one of our fans, Finn's take with CB83. It's just a matter of having the numbers, addition and subtraction. McDaniel does a really good job of getting numbers on the play side. Bobby, do you have a statistic or any knowledge of if the Dolphins run more to the play side rather than the field side?
No, I do not. But they will, like this clip shows, like they'll run their outside like crack schemes to the boundary as well. Like they there was nothing I could pick up on like anecdotally, but I didn't chart that necessarily either.
That's okay.
But yeah, in the run game, it's all about numbers and leverage in the run game.
Yeah. All right. The next play we have right here is going to be our crack toss. Let me go ahead and pull it up. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. This should be it. There we go. Got it up. Yes, we do. Here is basically the crack toss variant. Again, it's going to be a crackback block by either the wide receiver or the tight end, whoever's lined up at the line of scrimmage, and basically a toss run play to the running back. Eric, offensive line guru, my guy. What are we looking at here for the offensive line? What do they specifically have to do?
Yeah, so this is the one that I did the video on last week, and similar to the last play, it's going to look a lot like outside zone, and that's going to, cause the defense to kind of have to respect the middle a little bit, because that can cut back, that can, wind all the way back. Whereas with crack toss, they're trying to get outside as quick as possible, so they're taking advantage of the defense being a little hesitant of that. In this case, you've got the crack on the end, but instead of that play side tackle trying to combo and climb to the next level, he is immediately turning and running. That's where we see Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson separate themselves from some of the other tackles in the league, because that's not something that everybody can do. But everybody else, from play side guard and back, they're all just essentially running outside zone to that side and just trying to, cut off the block, slow down the flow, and let, our speed backs get outside and find a lane.
So, Bobby, when you saw this play, when you were doing your deep dive, when the Dolphins did this against the Denver Broncos, and the running back on this play was Devon Achane. I mean, when the Dolphins drafted Devon Achane, this basically changed the game for the Dolphins at the running back position. They added more speed as well, and this is what now Dolphins rookie Jalen Wright can also do. This is something that the Tennessee Volunteers also did under Josh Heupel's system. When you're playing up against a defensive front, whether it be a 4-man front and it's an 8-man box, how does this work?
Yeah, so crack toss, similar to outside zone, is another good scheme against 8-man boxes or loaded boxes where the defense is rotating down to single high, because you don't, especially on crack toss, because you're not trying to cut this back whatsoever. You don't have to block that backside defensive end. And like Eric was saying, it's the perfect complement if you're an outside zone team, because those linebackers, they've got gaps they're trying to fit. Well, now if you're going crack toss, now they got to scrape and pursue and pursue inside out to the edge to kind of make up ground there, because the skill players are blocking the edge defenders, right? Like usually you count on your end man of the line of scrimmage to kind of set the edge of the defense, right? Well, if he's getting cracked, it's hard to set the edge of the defense when you got someone blocking you from the outside. So it's a great compliment from that standpoint, and it fits the Dolphins personnel really well, like we talked about. Both Mostert and Achane did a great job on this have done a great job on this concept over the last couple of years.
Right, and when we're seeing this play live, it's going to be Cedric Wilson who is going to be motioning out, dragging the Will linebacker and the Mike linebacker as well. But then you're getting numbers because you're cracking. It looks like that the defense has the numbers, right? But then you have the two crackback blocks that the both wide receivers do on the nickel cornerback and the edge cornerback as well. And it's basically whoever's the fastest, who can hit the hole or who can plug the hole, will basically win this matchup. And I'll go ahead and pull up this play right here. All right, Eric, pre-snap, what are you seeing first?
Alignment that looks really good for this. They don't have a lot of guys outside of the formation there. Their defensive end is inside of the player that we're looking to use as the crack. The crack block. And, from there, again, it's just about cutting defenders off. You don't have to get a great block on those defensive tackles. You just have to be able to prevent them from slanting hard into the play. When you're getting up to the linebackers, again, you don't have to get out there and just manhandle them. You just have to make them not be able to run downhill. And as long as they can't do that, you see that with the linebacker that the center's going after there. He's not even blocking him, the one right on the hash mark there, but the linebacker is still trying to flow over top. He doesn't have that lane to run downhill. And that's all that you have to do on this play, is just literally get in the way and, let the back get outside and then find that lane to get north and south. And then it's just a speed game.
Yeah, it's a great flat path from the center there too. A lot of times, when I'm studying these offenses and I'm studying crack toss, which is one of my favorite concepts to study, is a lot of times when those interior offensive linemen don't take a flat path, they get more vertical. Those linebackers outrun them, right? They're faster players. So when they take a flat path like that, they give them a chance. And whenever I find a clip like this, it's great teach tape for high school, college, and even NFL coaches to use to show, hey, you have to take a flat path. The defender will meet you at that spot.
And when you're talking about a flat path, you're talking about the offensive lineman doing exactly what? Just following,
staying horizontal. Yep, staying at the
horizontal.
defensive lineman's heels instead of getting downfield. Yep.
So
yep.
basically, what
if
Connor
he went more
Williams
vertical there,
is doing right here.
Correct.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, notice how he doesn't get too far downfield. It allows him to stay outside his linebacker that he's responsible for blocking.
And same idea with Isaiah Wynn there. Like his steps on as the left guard there, that defender's pretty far outside. That's a tough block to get, but he doesn't have to block him. All he's got to do is beat him outside and just set up. See, he just gets there, just sets up, and that's all he's got to do. Just have to be more athletic than that defensive tackle, and you don't have to, get a ton of movement there.
Yep.
All right. Outside of these last 2 years run game, do you think that the Dolphins are going to be doing anything differently this season, Bobby?
That's a magical question, right? Obviously, they took stuff they were good at in 22 and really doubled down on it in 23. Obviously, we saw that stall out again, like it did in 22. I'm real curious to see where this goes. They do need some more physicality. They need some more downhill gap schemes in their run game. They just do. How they get there or how they I don't know about get around it, but how they get to that point is going to be really interesting. They're, like I said, they're one of my favorite teams to study in the sense that their coaching staff finds answers. So, the answers that they get to, I personally can't wait to see the first few games to see what we're going to be, what we're going to be watching.
All right, now we're going to go ahead and move over into the passing game. This should be one of your favorite concepts, Bobby, the bang, stutter, rail. Talk about it for us.
Yeah, so this is something I saw from them in 22 first, and then they obviously built on it more in 23. This is a great complement to the bang pivot concept that we talked about. So that the bang pivot example that I used with that fast motion in the rail kind of gets to the same thing. But this version, with the stutter rail, basically does the same thing. So it gives the bang pivot concept a better chance against cover one, and then also some quarters coverages too. Because from quarters, that safety can drive on that bang route and they can bracket it. So this allows the offense to still potentially get a big play down the field. And this example, I love this example because, obviously the Chargers gave the Dolphins fits in 22. So they open up with them in week one, last year. And the Chargers call a coverage, as we'll see in the clip where they're dropping 8 into coverage and they're using robber defenders to take away these bang windows. So it's like, wow, you're taking away what Miami does best. Like, great job. Well, guess what? We got this stutter rail built in with Tyreek Hill that now is one-on-one, just screaming up the numbers at the bottom of the numbers. That's built into this play. So what are you going to do now from a defensive standpoint? It just kind of it beefs up the concept and it takes what the concept wasn't good at and it makes it even more all-purpose and more explosive, which is kind of the goal when you're designing plays, what you want to do.
All right, so Eric, we know the Dolphins' offensive line is not a traditional drop back type of passing game. They are more so front flowing. They do not step back. They do not drop back. They attack up front. When you saw this live and, when you're taking a look at this film, what does the offensive line need to do to basically protect Tua and ensures this play is successful up against a front like that and the coverage being basically double one robber?
Yeah, so I mean, as wide as this alignment is here, you obviously have the one defender in the middle of the offense there over the nose, and then you have two guys lined up in wide 9 type techniques, and those two are likely coming. most defenses do not only send 3 rushers, so you can be pretty confident that somebody else is going to come. So from here, it's just a matter of being able to coordinate that identification between the line and the quarterback to decide which ones the line is going to be accountable for if they come and which ones they aren't. And sometimes you just kind of have to live with those choices, and that's where you sometimes will see where it looks like a lineman may not be blocking anybody at all while a free rusher is coming from the other side. But a lot of that is because it's determined pre-snap that, let's say that the center, right guard, right tackle are all looking at those 3 defenders to the right side of the offense that are closest to the line of scrimmage. If one of those don't come, you may have somebody that's kind of left out in the cold and just has to look to help somewhere else. And if the defense outnumbers you on the other side, you may have a free rusher, but it may not be, the fault of the protection. It may just be the way that the defense was able to, maybe influence the protection and get a free rusher. That happens at times, and the quarterback just has to be aware of that and know where his reads take him.
All right, go ahead and slow down the play right here. Running it. You're seeing Derwin James basically moving around. You're like, is he coming? Is he going to be the rusher, or is he going to drop back into coverage? As you said, Eric, if he is going to be a rusher, the right guard and the right tackle need to identify that immediately. So it's basically like a thinking game. They're like, okay, what do we do? Bobby, on the concept right here, we have Tyreek Hill inside acting as the slot wide receiver. He's going to stutter and move to the outside one-on-one, while Jalen Waddle right here is going to be running the bang right here. There's some open field right here in the middle of the field, and the Dolphins love to throw in the middle of the field. And as you said, in 2022, the Chargers gave the Dolphins fits, and the Dolphins found a complement. Now, this defense right here is a double one robber. They're in dime formation with the 3-man rush coming. You have man coverage from both safeties who are going to be holding the seams. They know that the Dolphins love to throw in the middle of the field. They're like, okay, this is probably going to be a bang pivot route. Yeah. Derwin James right here is going to be the main read and the main key for Tua. He's going to be looking alongside this middle of the field, and he's going to be hovering around it. So, Bobby, I'll go ahead and run the play, and then you go ahead and explain to us what's happening in real time.
Yeah, so as you can see, the bang route gets that squeezed. You got the man defender and then the robber coming from closer to the middle of the field that we'll see here. They take it away. And you can live with checkdowns, throwing it down to the running back here. But as you can see, that's taken away too. The defender's playing with inside leverage, so that return route coming back in is taken away. So, adding the stutter rail, you get Tyreek Hill one-on-one going up the numbers. That's a win for the offense.
Yeah, this was just a beautiful throw that we saw, and I don't know about you, Eric, but when I saw this live happen, my jaw just dropped to the floor. I was like, holy crap, I couldn't believe Tua and Tyreek actually did that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a fun game. I wish I would watch, living in Chicago, I don't get to see, I only get to see what, the networks, decide for me to see. But I remember watching the highlights of this after the game. I saw the final score. I'm like, okay, I got to check this out. So I watched, the extended highlights for the NFL, and you just hear Kevin Harlan just losing his mind the entire game at all the ridiculous throws and catches. Like, it was just, I remember watching the highlights. I'm like, man, that must have been a sick game. I cannot wait to watch the tape on this one.
And when we're talking about this concept, I'll go back and rewind it right here. We never really talk about this side of the play. We know Tua's going to be looking at the read on his right side, but we don't talk about what happens on the left side of the play. Let's say, for example, the stutter rail and the bang are taken away. You have basically an option route ran right here by Durham Smythe, where he's going to be reading the leverage. He's either going to be keying in, he's going to be running either a slant, a curl, or an out route. Based off this defense, Bobby, if the stutter rail and the bang were taken away, would the option to throw to Durham Smythe be better, or would it be the corner route to Braxton Berrios as he's working towards the sideline right here?
Yeah, so on this Berrios is mainly a clear out. So this is kind of something that the 49ers started dabbling with, I want to say in the middle of 22 with these backside choice routes. So typically the base install for the bang concept is some sort of return route on the backside. So like we talked about cover one, if that robber in normal cover one, drop where they're rushing 4, there's one robber in the middle of the field. And if he helps on that bang route, you need something from the other side of the field breaking in to replace him. And usually that's a return route where the receiver will break out and then come back in. So the choice route is another way to take advantage of that, right? You want to take advantage of the one-on-one and leverage. So as you can see with him breaking inside here, it kind of accomplishes the same thing. And then also too, with the backside choice, now you can get, presence on that defensive end, helping the play side tackle too. So a lot of times, and Kittle did this a lot with the Niners last year too, is he'll chip and then he'll run a backside choice route. So basically, and there's in the 2022 Dolphins manual, in the different bang sections, I talk about all the various backside concepts that they run, and they run a ton of different backside concepts. But what they're trying to do is replace that void if an extra hook defender helps on the bang side, like you're talking about. So this is the backside of the play that we're talking about, where the quarterback would look second if the side of the field that he's primarily looking at is covered.
All right. Thank you so much for that. We'll go ahead. Eric, protection on this bang stutter rail before we move on. What's it like?
Yes. Yeah, so we actually do only get the 3 rushers, but what you see here is what's called a 3/4 slide instead of a half slide. You have the left guard sliding to the right also, but the reason that we have that is because, we're not leaving Kendall Lamb on an island against Khalil Mack over there. Durham Smythe is actually helping out. So you're basically creating 2-on-1 blocking everywhere across the line there, which is what enables Tua to step up in the pocket there.
And Eric, this is actually something that I need to be on a mission, and I need to kind of poke around and ask people. With that 4-man slide going the other way, if the defense brought one more defender to that side, I believe the tight end would stay in protection. I don't think he would chip and release. And that's something that I can't confirm, but I need to ask about. But that's been my biggest intrigue this offseason as far as like the different ways these teams get to these concepts. And the Niners did this a lot too, is on these chip releases into the choice routes and the different things they do over the middle of the field. With the tight ends is the exact protection responsibilities with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you watch the way that Kendall Lamb is kind of setting off the snap, it looks like, he's kind of respecting that inside move as if, number 9 would come, that he would slide back inside and get there. But because he doesn't come, it's a communication deal that allows Durham Smythe to slide out as an outlet receiver, and for Lamb, who we'd prefer taking on Khalil Mack, to take over that block.
Yep, exactly. Great point.
All right. Now we'll go ahead outside of this passing concept. We'll go ahead and talk about one more passing concept as well. I gotta find it. Here it is. This is the stick, and the Dolphins recently signed Odell Beckham Jr. For this as well. So how does Odell Beckham Jr. fit in this Dolphins offense, Bobby?
So I do have to apologize. I got to take off after this one, but and I think this might be our last one anyways, but regardless. Yes. I think the fit of Odell Beckham Jr. is interesting in the sense that it gives them more a different skill set than what they have with Hill and Waddle, right? Like Odell, when I think of Odell Beckham Jr., I think of slants and fade routes. And he's one of the best slant runners that we've seen in the NFL in the last 10 years. Now, he's not what he used to be, right? This isn't like a splashy signing. So I think concepts like this, like their quick game dragon concept, they love a ton. Dragon is the concept on the left of the screen where you've got a 3-step slant with an arrow route, either coming from a tight end, a receiver, or a running back. In this case, it's the running back out of the backfield. Odell Beckham Jr. can take slants to the house. He did it last year with Baltimore. But also, too, on the stick route is that 6-yard out-breaking route from the tight end there, who's off the ball there. He can run the stick route. I think he can give you a little bit more juice on a stick route than some of the tight ends or other receivers that have been running it for Miami over the last few years. So, you can call him on a stick route. You can have, like, say this play call was, for this year, right? You could have Jalen Waddle on the slant. You could have Hill on the slot fade. So if you get man, you're taking Hill. And then you got the stick route from Odell Beckham against like cover 2, right? You got him isolated against the Mike. With the Tampa Mike dropping deep, you could hit him on the stick route. So it gives them a different skill set to incorporate in their concepts. It gives like more physicality at the point of the catch too, with certain plays.
All right, and here is where one of those plays the Dolphins actually failed at, and it turned out to be, I believe it could have been a pick six. I got to rerun the play, but this is exactly what you're talking about here, Bobby. The Dolphins are in the red zone. They are emptied out wide. The personnel, from what it looks like, is you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I believe that's Durham Smythe, Alec Ingold, and Braxton Berrios as well. So it's 11 personnel itself. You have one running back, one tight end, and you're emptied out wide. I'll go ahead and run the play. We're not going to see a motion here, but I'll stop it. Eric, offensive line and defensive line outlook. What are you looking at right now?
Yeah, so this looks like a pretty similar protection to the last play, but going the opposite way. This time you've got that three-quarter slide going to your left. You got left tackle, left guard working together, center and right guard. But like we talked about on that last play, on the right side there, you can see that Austin Jackson is kind of reading that linebacker is blitzing, so he's not setting outside as much. He is, waiting for that linebacker, and that's how we end up with Ingold on that edge defender versus Austin Jackson, just because of that little difference between this play and the last play, where last play we saw Kendall Lamb getting outside and taking the defensive end because the linebacker doesn't come. But this is essentially the same protection, just the opposite way.
Mm-hmm. And Bobby, what we're seeing from the Giants right here is a variation of their red 2 defensive coverage here in the red zone. It looks like the Dolphins are pretty much there's barely any separation, no window as well, and Tua tries to fit this in between these two defenders, and you have the third defender closing in. Basically, it's a triangle all over Jalen Waddle. Like, if he misses that, like, it could lead into an interception, which it did. The window was just closing so fast on them. I'll go ahead and rerun it this way. This concept itself, Tua's working over to the slant and a flat right here. If OBJ was on the other side of the ball, if he was going to be running that stick route, he would be the third read. In this scenario, would this play have worked if Odell Beckham Jr. was on the field?
I think he gives you a different skill set. He gives you that more physical presence. He can kind of box out a little bit more. I think, this play has a few different issues going on with it. I think Waddle's route technique, he could have come back downhill a little bit more. I think Tua, this is one of those where it's like, is he anticipating or is he guessing? And it felt like he was guessing a bit. Obviously you don't want to, red zone passing is tough, but this is the absolute last thing that you want to have to happen, right? Throw a pick six, I think dropping 8, trying to throw in the red zone against a well-coached drop 8 defense where they're closing windows quickly like this is just, it's tough in general. You don't want to live in this world. To answer your question about if Odell Beckham Jr. fixes this, I don't know if he necessarily does, but I think his skill set will give the Dolphins some more possibilities, and they'll kind of be able to round out their concepts a little bit better with his skill set, I think.
Right. And if you're taking a look at Braxton Berrios, he's matched up one-on-one. There's no other help right there.
Right. That's key too, right? You need a receiver that can win one-on-one to the other side of the field. Yep.
Yeah. And if Tua's reading this, he's like, okay, no one's open. Let me switch over to the next side of the field. OBJ should be able to get open. If he was able to get some separation over there, which we know he is able to, it could have been a touchdown. Could have been a touchdown itself. Bobby, thank you so much for coming, man. I learned a lot today.
Yeah. No, like I said, I love talking Miami Dolphins football, specifically the offensive side of the ball. I think they're one of the more well-coached teams in the league. They do a lot of things really well. With that said, they do have some questions they have to answer, personnel and scheme-wise coming into this season. And I cannot wait to see how they address it because they're fun to watch and they do things, the right way. So.
Of course, man, you're always welcome. Maybe we can get something set up after a couple games or so, see how this Dolphins offense is doing. Eric, did you learn anything new today?
Oh, absolutely. It's always fun to get on and, talk X's and O's. definitely learn a lot from Bobby, as I do anytime I look at his stuff, whether it's on Twitter, the stuff that he posts on, you know, YouTube, Twitter, wherever he has it, his books behind me. I mean, Bobby's just a wealth of knowledge and always very responsive anytime I've asked him questions. So I really appreciate his responsiveness and his willingness to come on this show. It's been a lot of fun.
Bobby, where can we find your books and manuals at?
So if you Google my name, that's probably the simplest way. All my books are on Amazon. My Twitter handle is, I always forget my Twitter handle. It's B_Peters12. So you can find I'm usually pretty active on Twitter. That's probably where you can find me. The best way to reach me or see what I'm up to is on Twitter. I like to post screenshots of my books, little clips, kind of talking about different things, the different offenses I'm studying, or, just general football thoughts there too. But yeah, those are probably the two best places. And then probably something I started last year that I'm slowly growing as I find free time, is I started a Substack called Alert the Post. So I'll post stuff from my books there. Sometimes I'll post stuff that doesn't make it to the books. And then I'll post cut-ups too. So like, obviously my books don't come with cut-ups for a few different reasons, but I can post them onto my Substack so that, you can find longer form clips. Like, I think I've got, 20 minutes of 20 minutes of crack toss from the Miami Dolphins from 2023 on there, so that you can find that there. And then an example of something that doesn't really make the books is, I studied about 10 games of the Falcons last year before I had to shift gears to a different team. And they ran a really neat counter wineback concept that I posted about a couple of days ago here on Wednesday. So yeah, those are probably the best places you can find me.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. And as always, guys, go Fins.
Thanks a lot.